What's going on, guys? Welcome back to our Let's Play here on the Amplified Console Edition. Today we are working on our firework display. Now, I've changed my mind about 3 times on how I want this to be done. Quickly before we start off explaining that, I'll show you what I've quickly done with the villager sorter. Now, like I said, I took out that section of wall, just made a little archway, and shut up, horse. And then I've just whacked a load of carpet with a load of glowstone underneath. I know it looks a little bit out of place at the moment, and we're missing a bit of carpet there. You got any carpet? There we go. Just actually catch that up. Oh, we're missing one over here. It's where I was adding more glowstone, because you see where you get these little dark patches. It was bugging me a little bit, so I've been going around, and pretty much about 80% of the floor is now glowstone. At the moment, it does look pretty plain and pretty bland, but eventually, once we do the villager farms, I'm going to have them at the top of this mountain here. And I want them all to be funneling into the centre here, so we're going to have like a central console where all of our resources are coming into to then do the trading. Now, the villagers have been driving me insane because I've probably killed a good 200-300 of them now. And out of that 200-300, I've only got one villager. Well, not one villager, one librarian. And yeah, I've got rid of a lot of the blacksmiths and weaponsmiths. This guy, for some reason, come all the way over here because I had the door placed. So he's now just wandering around villager. Once I build some houses with doors inside the fort area, they will all go into there. Now, this librarian, I've not opened up his trades, but his first trade is 14 emeralds for an Unbreaking 3 book. So he's definitely going to be a keeper. I've had no trouble with mob spawns in here, so that's all going well. I did find this horse randomly wandering around outside. He looked pretty cool, so tamed him up and cracked some armour and a horse saddle on him. Just go up to our fort quickly and put him back. I've left him in the fort about 4 times now, and he keeps on wandering all the way back over to there. But you stay there. I've also spent some time moving a load of our items. We've got our 16 colour variations, dead centre of our, future to be sorting system. And I've been going through and making sure that all the slots are filled. Now, obviously you've got the concrete, the powder, the glass panes, the glazed terracotta, the normal terracotta, the wall, the carpets, the dyes, and then you've got the chest of each dye. Now, I've been going through doing that with each one. It's a little bit time consuming, but something that I wanted to get done. So once we finally filled out the entire sorting, all the chests that need to be sorted, then we can actually start the redstone in here, which I'm looking forward to. Now, the fireworks show, initially I have planned to do just pretty much a load of dispensers running completely around in the perimeter wall. But I was thinking about it, and the redstone behind it wasn't going to be interesting. It wasn't intricate or complicated. It was just going to be pretty much just a long line of redstone. I was going to dig underneath the entire perimeter wall, run the redstone, link it up to dispensers on every 3rd or 4th section, and then I started crafting the fireworks. Now, I'm not sure if you've tried crafting the normal fireworks using the console crafting grid sort of thing, and I've come to realise that it's extremely glitchy and buggy. It will use up more dye than it's meant to, and then if you run out of one certain material, it will carry on using up the materials that you have got without creating the actual fireworks. So I tore through quite a lot of dye figuring that out, and then I ended up having to switch to the classic crafting grid to craft all the fireworks, which in itself is very time consuming. But I did get a fair few amounts done. So they're all of our white ones. These are our large all pink, purple and fades. I think we've got like 4 or 5 different variations of fireworks. And the reason for that is, instead of doing the whole perimeter wall with dispensers with just a straight line of repeaters and redstone dust, it would have been pretty boring fireworks show because you press a button and then what would happen is that you just have a line of fireworks going off, going all the way around. It would have looked pretty cool, but it wouldn't have been much to it. It wouldn't mean much behind it. And yeah, I didn't really like the idea of it in the end. So what we are going to be going for after I go to sleep quickly, and I'll explain. What I want to do is actually do some form of an actual fireworks show. So there's got to be some sort of time into it and some sort of plan behind it, rather than just a load of repeaters with random fireworks going off, going around the perimeter. What I am going to be doing is doing tiers sort of thing of the fireworks. So we're going to have like the first lower section of fireworks, so will be, so I've actually busted out a few little blocks on the other side. Give you a quick demonstration of how I want it to go. So like these 4 spaces here will have dispensers, and you're going to have them on this side, the front, and the other side. Now that will be our tier 1 section. Now what I want to happen is for these to go off 10 times, and then for the next tier to go off. So the next tier will be like 2 there, 2 in that tower, 2 in that tower, 2 in that tower. But then when these start, after the 10 rounds of these ones have gone off, I then want these ones to carry on going off in sync with the next section to go off 10 times, and then we want a third section in the 4 towers of the higher one, which means then you'll have 10 of the first round, 10 of the first round and second round, then 10 of the first, second and third round, and then we want 10 going off at the final round with one final main firework going off. Now that became a lot more complicated than obviously sending just one redstone signal going around, because it's now involved me having to start using redstone counters, which I've never played around with before. So obviously I needed the counter to count how many times one section will go off before activating the next section, and then for the original section to continue going off before without this section then doing its next 10 and automatically switching off the next section. I know that I'm not making much sense at the moment, but what I will do with you now is hop into my redstone test world, which I very rarely do, because I prefer building stuff here and explaining it to you as I go along. But by the time I've got the redstone built behind it, it's going to look like an absolute mess of wires, which will be really hard to explain. So we'll jump over into my redstone test world and I'll show you what I mean. And welcome to the redstone test world. Now try to ignore all the contraptions that are around. Obviously we've got our scarab design over here, which is in our mining outpost, and super smelter, and the gatehouse designs. But we're concentrating on this one little circuit here right now, and I'll take you to the bigger version of it. Now this here is a redstone counter. There's a number of different variations of them that you can use. This one works in the Pocket Edition also, so I'm hoping that once it's built, if the update comes out, it won't break it. So what I want to happen initially is that this will then count up to 10. It will be running off of a hopper clock, which is this thing just over here. At the moment it's locked because it's been switched off. Now when we send a redstone signal, we need a button. Let's a lever and some buttons. Now once this is then switched on, what will happen is that will start going off. The fireworks will then start going off, and then that will do 10 rounds while the counter counts up. So as you can see, the redstone's getting further and further with each firework. And then once this then reaches, it will then turn itself off. This is just a miniature version of the type of circuit that I'm going to be using. So as you can see, there's a lot of monostable circuits running in at the same time. So that will run to 10, send the signal, and it will turn itself off and it will lock itself. Now, that's a very small version of what it is that I want it to work, but the way I want it to work is that when it reaches 10, it will then activate the next section without turning itself off, which is quite simple to do. If you didn't want it to turn itself off, just break that and then it will start again. But then each clock, it counts up to 10 and the clock itself will reset itself to 10. So obviously there, one firework went off, then the signal got up to there. Once it reaches 10, the signal then wraps around to here, turns the redstone torch off, deactivating this, and then relocking all the signal. So that is the way the actual counter itself works. The clocks we're using are hopper clocks, depending on how quick we want the fireworks to go off in time with each other. I found that 8 to 10 is the sort of time frame that we really want. So we'll have like one barrage go off, and then by the time they've set off, then the next one will go off. So then you've got time for that first one to sort of disintegrate before the next one goes off. Now I'm going to leave that clock there and running, so it's going to turn itself off. And then we'll move on to the redstone circuit, which is this complete monstrosity here. Not the minecarts, not the sugarcane, this section here. Now, this is where it gets a tad bit confusing and a tad bit complicated. Now, I always seem to lose where the beginning section is. I think it's this one over here. Whichever one has the button on, yeah, so it's this one here. So, what will happen is that once it's activated, this hopper clock will then get unlocked, and then the dispensers are here at the beginning of the clock cycle. Now, at the end of this clock cycle, what will happen, it will activate this one here, and then it's easy if I start it going off now, and we'll run through it. Okay, so that will start. That will count up to 10. Now, obviously, this one's a little bit out of sync just at the top there, because I had it running on before and I cut it off early. So this will run to 10. That dispenses out fireworks, and then it will activate the next section. But what we then had to do is that with this clock, this one is still going to be running. Now, what we had to make sure is that this one then wouldn't send a signal again to this, which would then turn it off. So this locking mechanism, which is the button switching to lever mechanic, is a self-locking one. So once it's switched on, the signal's then sent round to here, locking out this section, stopping the previous one from then turning it off. So then what will happen is that this one will reach the same end, and then it will then activate the next one. The next one has the same locking mechanism, which will stop itself from being turned off by the previous section. So this one's going to carry on running, the first one's going to carry on running. So we've got any fireworks on us? Yes, we have. We'll throw them in. That one, I think the cycle's finished because I've only done 3 cycles on this. Let's kick it off again. So what will happen is that once this cycle's been done, like this one will switch on this clock, this one will run to 10. And then at the very final one, this is going to be like our main, like, finale sort of firework, but we're going to have one more section. So instead of just the 3 counters, we're going to have 4 counters and then the final section. The final section, once it's reached 10, it will switch this lever, this lever mechanic, and then this lever mechanic will automatically switch every single other lever mechanic off, and it will also then switch itself off. So it will send a signal going round to here to the monostable, signal then run back round to itself, turning itself off, but then at the same time it will run it to this monostable circuit, which will then be sent to every other lever mechanic, turning the entire system off. That is the hopes and dreams of it. So what you will have, obviously, instead of just 1 dispenser on each, the first one will have 12 dispensers firing the sort of beginning fireworks off, and then the next section will have the bigger sort of colours going off, and then the third section will have even more colours going off. So then what I'm hoping to happen is layers of firework on top of each other. So then you'll have a lot of colours, and then right at the end you'll have the very final firework going off, which I've crafted specially, which actually costs quite a lot to craft, to be honest with you. I've gone through quite a lot of my gunpowder, quite a lot of blaze rods, a lot of coal for the fire charges, diamonds for doing the trails, glowstone dust for doing the sparkles. But yeah, I keep on saying because I'm just trying to explain how this all works when I've only just learned how the counters themselves work is pretty difficult. But I've got a system working how I want it to work, and I'm hoping that it all comes out alright. But as you can imagine, trying to fit 4 of these counters into the top section of the tower is going to be rather complicated and rather compact. And considering that each dispenser system, obviously instead of just one dispenser, where the signal comes in here, it is then going to have to run off into 12 different directions to activate 12 different dispensers, hopefully simultaneously. But finally, at the end of the show, I'm hoping to have, 4, 8, 12, plus another 8, plus another 8, plus probably another 6, plus a 1. You're probably looking at around about 30, between 30 and 40 dispensers towards the end firing fireworks. Now, I've crafted enough fireworks. Yeah, as you can see, the entire system's now been shut off because it's done a complete... Actually, this one is still running. Let me just make sure. No, it's doing another cycle. Hold on. It's hard to tell at the moment. That one go through there. Oh no, it's just reaching the end cycle now. Just most of them run out of... Yeah, so once this reaches the end, this mechanic will then switch everything off. It's just that the dispensers themselves have run out of fireworks. The show should last for, I think it works out as... should work out as around about 2 to 3 minutes. I'm not sure why that hasn't switched this one off. That one goes to there. That one's through. Oh, I disconnected it there because I was testing it. No, that's fine. Yeah, what I'll do is that I'll go ahead and I'll get a fully functioning working system in place in our fort, and hopefully run through the redstone with you after it's done before I do the actual firework display. But yeah, I've decided to make it a lot more complicated now. I'm about 99.9% sure there is a lot more simplistic counter systems than this that could work in the same way without taking up as much room. But as you can probably tell, I've got a lot of crafting to do, especially repeaters. This is going to use hundreds of repeaters after it's done, and quite a lot of dispensers. So I'm going to get cracking in my survival world, and I'll bring you back once we've got a functioning system. So I'll see you back shortly. And we're back, guys. Now it's actually 2 days later since I last since I last done that bit of recording, but I finally gone ahead and got the contraption built that I wanted to get built. Hopefully I can explain how it should work to you a lot easier now, because the way I've built it, although it's a lot more compact and you've got a lot more wires, I've actually done it color coordinated, so I can show you what's meant to happen anyway. Now, at the moment, it may look like there's a complete absolute mess of redstone cables going everywhere, but all the dispensers are hooked up to different coloured sections. Now, the red section is going to be our first section of fireworks that go off, which is going to be your basic, I think they're white ones, sort of white twinkle, large ball fireworks go off. But what happens if we go over to here? This is our main switch. Once this switch is on, it starts off the whole circuit and the whole system going forward. This is our hopper clock. So, as you can see, it blinks away, but at the moment it's locked off from the system being off. Now, this will then send the pulse. I've done it very awkwardly here. It then runs along here, up the top here, over here to the red counter. Now, the red counter will count up to 10. Once it reaches 10, it will then send a signal to the brown section. And let me just hop up here. How come I've got ender pearls on me? Now, this signal comes up this redstone tower onto this. This system definitely isn't going to work when the update comes out. I've got quite a few of these monostable circuits in place just because they're a lot more compact, and there was a lot of this that wasn't going to work when the update comes out, but I'm okay with that. It's a fun project to do in the meantime. Now the signal comes into the brown section, it will then switch on the brown switch, will then unlock the brown section's hopper clock, which will then feed into the brown section counter. Now with the switch, I'm not sure if I explained it too well in the redstone world, that once it's switched on, the signal will then go back around and it will lock itself out from being able to be switched off from the previous section. So then the signal then comes from the brown section the brown section hopper clock, runs into this counter. Once this counter reaches 10, it will then send the signal up to the orange section. And the same system here, it runs into a redstone switch. And then once the redstone switch is on, this little line of redstone circuitry comes here and it will lock out the brown section from being able to switch it off. So then the orange section will then lead on to the orange counter. Now each counter is hooked up to a individual set of hoppers. The orange counter is hooked up to the ones at the top. The brown counter is hooked up to the ones in the 4 towers at the bottom. The red counter is hooked up to the 12 dispensers going around on the outer walls. So after the orange counter reaches 10, it will then jump up to the white section, which is our main turn-off circuit. So then it will then come up here, it will switch this switch on. Now this switch runs into, yet again, another monostable circuit, which will be broken when the update comes out. Now this one sends a signal back round to itself to switch itself off again. But at the same time, it will send a signal going every which way at the moment. It resets all the counters and it also turns off all of the switches. So this one will turn off the orange switch. That one resets the brown counter. Oh, I want to fall off there. This line over here turns off the brown switch and the red switch. And that line over there that one resets the red circuit's counter, and this one here resets the orange counter. Now it took me about 3 hours in total to build, but then probably about 7 to 8 hours problem solving. Now as you can see, there is buttons dotted about everywhere from where I was testing individual parts of the circuit to see what was going wrong and how it was going wrong. But we've actually finally got a working system up and running. Now, I know it doesn't look pretty in any way. Is that just I don't know what that block's there for. I think that was, I've had to rebuild this about 4 times. Initially, this was hooked up to a sticky piston with slime blocks and redstone blocks to turn off the 2 switches down here. But I kept on having major issues with it leaving blocks behind. So I've ended up just doing a downward spiral staircase of redstone that then cuts across here over to here to turn the red switch back off. And then the same system for the brown switch just up there. Now, if you're ever going to build anything like this, it would have been a lot simpler for me just to build 4 completely separate floors and just do each colored section on each individual floor. But I thought doing it this way was going to be easier, and it most definitely was not. As you can see, I've had to do quite a few different bits of very obscure circuitry. Like I've had to send a signal going this way as well as going that way, so I've had to use repeaters running into blocks instead of using redstone dust just to get around that, because we was confined with a 3 gap height, and that was painful. That was where a lot of issues was coming in. Another lot of issues was coming in from where just redstone dust was activating pistons from certain angles, like the quasi powering that you've got at the moment in the console edition. And yeah, that wasn't being favourable to me when building it, but it is all sort of up and running and it's ready to go. Each one's filled with a set of fireworks be set off. Now, in no way does it look pretty, and I'm alright with that, because once the update comes out, I'm going to be tearing this entire thing out. I will be replacing it with a much simpler firework system with the dispensers in the same places. But obviously I want to free up a lot of this room in here for a future project that I've got in mind. Now, if we hop down here where it is very dark, I didn't want to go all the way down. Yeah, our turning on mechanism is that button right there to activate the whole system. I've set up a little platform up there. Now there's 2 issues that I've come into which I really wish I knew before starting this. One is that initially I thought the fireworks dispensed from dispensers just go straight up and explode. They do not. They fly everywhere. So as opposed to the placements of the dispensers and the heights of dispensers, it honestly didn't really matter too much, because I've tested it out in a copied world just to see, to make sure that it was all running fine. And yeah, they do just shoot left, right, centre and everywhere. I need to get up there quickly to light up, otherwise mobs are going to spawn, and that's where we want to be watching the show from, because that is the second issue I ran into, is that fireworks only render within 65 blocks. So if you are standing all the way over there, now I initially wanted to be standing on top of that hill back there to see the whole show, but being that far away, none of the fireworks rendered, although that they were still going off. So I think this should be a decent distance away from it for you to see the entire thing. Now we'll go down, activate it. We'll probably miss the first 1 or 2 fireworks, and fingers crossed it all works according to plan. When I build up, I'm going to be building just a sand tower, so then I can take it down easily after. Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's not just all being a complete waste of my time. So go down by 1, get something to eat, and yeah, switch on. Now we want to get back up on that platform. There we go. We'll have a quick watch. So you'll have the 10 barrages of the white, and then the next colour will kick in. And then you'll have 10 barrages of both, and then the third colour will kick in. And then you'll have a final barrage with 1 final firework. That should be the system that I've got in place. But yeah, I do like the look of the fireworks, and they're very expensive to make and quite a pain to make. And there's our other colours coming in now. Now what I think I could do differently is give the flight duration of the fireworks different levels. So then the white ones could be like flight duration 1, the next ones could be flight duration 2, and then the third ones could be flight duration 3. So then at least they're at different heights. You should have the third colour kicking in any time now, I believe. There you go. We've got the pink and magenta ones that are coming up in the middle there. Then you'll have 10 full barrages of all of them. And then there should be 1 final firework in the middle. that's the end of the show. But yeah, I think it's come out fairly decent. I'm happy with it, although that the fact that they fly about everywhere was a bit of... Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I actually wanted to go up there to see if our final firework went off, because I didn't actually see it. Yeah, if I'd known that the fireworks fly about all over the place, I would have had a different plan in mind. Yeah, the final firework did go off, but you didn't really get to see it, and this one was actually quite expensive to make. It's thing is, I don't want to send the signal back down, so we break that bit of redstone there, and we get a... Oh, we need somewhere to put this box. Run over here quickly. We want a button. Do that. We just put a button on here. It's like a red, green and blue creeper face. I've had to use one of the dragon skulls for that. But obviously it's nowhere near as big as the other colours that was overpowering it. But yeah, it was all working, up and running. The only other issue I'm running into is the resetting of the counters. Now, the counters are somewhat quite reliable because the reset of them right at the end, although all the systems are switched off, I'm now going to have to run down and reset the counters manually, which is literally where you've got the counters. This one is now for some reason stuck up to number 4, which it shouldn't be, so you just break that repeater and you place it back down. And then that will reset that one. This one's got a few of them. Like, this counter system is not reliable at all, but it's the first one that I saw and it's the first one that I learnt, so it's been quite a steep learning curve for me. And this one's only got the third one, and then that's the system completely reset, ready to go again. I'm quite happy with it. I do enjoy playing with the fireworks, and I'm definitely going to be using them quite a bit in the future with future projects. But this entire project's been an extreme learning curve for me, and it's one of the most intricate redstone circuit systems that I've had to build. And I've had quite a lot of fun actually, playing around with the counter mechanics and like making sure to do all the triggers correctly with the switches. Now, it's been hair pulling at moments and possible rage quit moments where there was some issues that was arising that was just down to silly little mistakes that I had made, but eventually I persevered with it, and the fireworks show came out how it was intended, although obviously the coordination of them looks a little bit off due to the fact that the fireworks fly everywhere, which I wasn't expecting. But yeah, that I think is going to do it for today's episode anyway. I'll probably tinker around with the... Oh, there's a skeleton up there. I need to put some half slabs up there before some zombies spawn and kill whatever villagers we got here. I'm going to do a little bit of tinkering around. I'm going to have a play around with other counter systems in my redstone test world. But hopefully this has been an eye-opening episode for you, as it has to me. But yeah, I think that's going to do it. And if you... Oh, hopefully you've enjoyed this episode as much as I have enjoyed making it. And if it's your first time to the channel, please consider subscribing for future Minecraft content. And I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye bye.